getting your home.
Okay, good.
Well, can you splice it from the other one? They're just gonna be two sets of videos. Because the other one ended and then we started a new class in the other video.
That's fine. Well, this is all, we're all figuring this out. So I won't be in here all the time.
Next time I'll do that.
Next time you can, whenever you hit end stream, that's the name of that class. And then you just, and what's cool is, so I was, and I was like, driving towards. I could hear questions from people in the back of the room. We need, this needs to come up. This needs to be about you to get a good, like, look. So what we do is I just kind of put this down so it's not distracting. You might like it, but then so have this up if you want, so you can see what's going on. See, like the camera, I think the camera can come this way.
All right, I gotta get one.
There you go. I'm just kidding.
Okay. All right, I'll do that.
Yeah, and then you can look. So those of it,
All right, guys. So go play along with me here. Let's all say that again together. Let's see if you've got it on your own. So you're asked the seller, let me ask you a question that might help us, okay? Might help us make a decision here. So maybe I'm prefacing it. Let me ask you a question that might help us both make a decision. What's the question? All together, ready? 1, 2, 3. What is more important to you, getting the home sold or netting the most? And they're going to say, netting the most. Okay. Then we have another question. So if netting the most is more important, then it's a different challenge. This is still a statement. It's a different challenge than getting the home sold, because now we have to find the best buyer, and then we say, don't we? Okay? See, now we have to find the highest paying buyer, don't we? Everyone repeat that. Now we have to find the highest paying buyer, don't we? And they say, yes. So you see, that's kind of, it's getting a running start at this idea of exposure and marketing. And then we talk about what that means in 2018. How do we get exposure in the grand market to find this highest paying buyer? How do we go about that? Well, that takes money. That takes labor. So it takes capital, takes expense. So what we bank on fundamentally is it's better to spend the money on the commission, which funds this endeavor of exposure to find the highest paying buyer, than to delete the money that won't find the highest paying buyer. And that's really, real estate is built in a large part, not all part, but on that premise, that theory. Is this theory only to real estate? Do other companies, products, industries use the same theory?
Yes.
Do they spend money in marketing? What if they deleted their budget, Robin? What if they removed the sales and marketing department? What would happen to the product?
Sales would go down. I mean, they would, yeah, they'd go down.
So they would go down, sales would go down. So there's something that I think of. I've said this before. Businesses cannot save their way to profitability. You've heard me say that before, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't save your way to a profit. It's actually the opposite is true. You spend more money wisely. So yeah, we're not wasteful. That's not it at all. But we spend more. That's how you grow a company, right? You hire more people, you spend more money. You invest in the new tool, technology, space, warehouse, whatever that it is.
Research and development.
Research and development. We need to define something. We know there's an obstacle. We can't get out of the way. So we're going to study it. So we're going to put money to do that. We're going to spend money wisely. That's how we grow a company. So that theory also applies to selling a home. The home is a single, unique, and custom product looking for the same kind of buyer. But the theory's the same. By the way, this theory also translates to how you grow your business. We don't save our way to a profit. We spend more money wisely. Okay. All right. Let me give you some things not to say. Not to say.
Bag on the other guys.
How many of you thought, well, the seller said something like, yeah, I agree, you guys are the best, you know, ABC Realty, you know, Joe over there at ABC Realty, he told me he would list our house for 5%. So if you guys will do it for 5%, I'll list with you. How many of you are tempted to say something like, to go down this line of negotiating and their ability to negotiate, and something like, well, their ability to have a paycheck, like this is their paycheck. I heard someone say, well, if he's so poor at negotiating his own paycheck, how will he be at negotiating your house? Why is that not the best thing to say?
You're putting down another agent, for one.
Okay, Allie said you're putting down another agent. Okay.
Because you're bringing everything down to your commission, looking at your commission, not everything else that is around us.
Like,
You know, but
It's just cost, not value.
you know, selling your house the way you want it, the selling your house to get your net, more net. And
Mo's a very smart guy, because here's the problem with that. It was all about me. See, I took this thing and I went and ran with it and said, if the agent's so poor about negotiating their paycheck, and now you're, you know, and he's so poor at that, then I just turned the commission into what? The paycheck for the agent.
Yeah.
Isn't the commission much more than the paycheck to the agent?
Yeah.
So much more.
It's so much more than that. Now, granted, in our environment of equation of commission, that the agent is netting more, the vast majority of the commission for their personal time and labor and being the conduit of all the services that are out there. And they get paid well to do that. But to say that the commission as a whole is only the paycheck for the agent diminishes the value of the commission. Because now it sounds self-serving. This is all about me. I had another variation of this where the agent said, you're taking away my incentive, they said. So why, be careful not to do that. There was another one that I don't like, where the dollar bill, you know, and they take the dollar bill and they say, well, you know, this much goes to my broker, this much goes here, this much goes here, and this is what's left. You know, and it's very agent-centered. I mean, we've got to communicate from the point of view with the seller that what they want matters most and not what we want.
Thinking about, it's only another $3,500 on your offer that we're talking about. So you could be, you would net the same, potentially paying a 5% commission or paying a 6% commission if we can negotiate, or I can negotiate the best price for your property.
Yeah.
Because I mean, how do you feel about that?
I think that as long as you inject that as one of the benefits and not the benefit, you know, the only thing, because what we don't know for sure is, are we always going, because we can't experiment with this. See, we can't put in the lab ABC Realty and the discounted model, and therefore the lack of services, syndication, exposure, and so on, and then put that property out there and then put it with all the power of Berkshire Hathaway behind it and see who nets the most. I mean, we don't have that. What we can do is say, generally speaking, Berkshire Hathaway's average sales price is substantially higher than the MLS. You know, when we do our market study, we can say, look at all the homes that have sold, look at the average MLS price, and then take just our office and take a look at that, and you'll see a spike. So maybe there is some truth there. You know, we just a reminder for all of us, we never, there's never a reason to embellish, exaggerate. So when I'm saying to Josie, just be careful that, because it's the truth. It's not the only benefit, but it is one. So you don't have to put all this emphasis on it and say, look, I'm just going to net you more, so it's a moot point. Well, it's one of the things that we're going to do, because I I can't do the test between this model and our model and say, see, we made up the difference. They have to make a choice that's broader than just that as well. That's why we go through the four benefits. So I think of things like, I think like this. I say, well, what do sellers want? And over here, I have all of the benefits, and I call them my core, and you guys know what they are, right? It's top price, it's highest net, it's the time in which it takes to sell, and it's the least amount of legal risk. And I add another one, it's the increase, like I could draw dice maybe. Can I draw dice? The increased chance of selling. And I think that's all of my benefit. And over here are all the things that I do to get that. And I translate it. I speak the language of benefit when I speak seller. And that there's no place in speaking the benefit language to a seller that has to do with my commission, me, my incentive, my paycheck. So I think that negotiating track has a landmine in it. I might inject it kind of at the end and say, I just think it's curious that a big role of a real estate agent is to negotiate, right? And that if they're poor at doing that on their own services, which they know best, either one of two things could be true. One, they know the value of their services, and therefore they've adjusted the price in line with their value, or they're a very poor negotiator, which gives me pause about who I'm going to hire to represent my home. But that's not, I have to use that kind of at the end because it doesn't speak the language of benefit to the seller. Like we keep our eye on the ball. What do you want to do? You want to sell or do you want to get the highest net? I want to get the highest net. Okay, highest net. Well, that's why we are built. So, okay. All right, so that's my tip on, wait, one more question, Mo, or I'm going to end the live stream.
Okay. In this series of benefits that you're putting in here, isn't that the selling highest and then net would actually be the same thing? And
Yeah.
Sometimes that's not even the same thing with the dollar, because dollars doesn't matter. It's net. What is that?
Well, this, we say get the highest sales price, but what we're really saying is netting the most.
Right. So,
or the highest.
It's a little bit.
It's really the same thing.
Yeah.
We're almost doubling up on the same concept. It's a different way to say it.
Mhm.
But these become hot buttons for sellers. I mean, why are they hiring an agent at Berkshire Hathaway anyway? I mean, why don't they just put a for sale sign up and sell it? Why don't they call the family and say, hey, you guys want to buy it? Yesterday, I had a friend of mine say, hey, my dad's selling these 2 investment properties. He said, I was thinking about buying them. I said, well, he goes, but dad cannot afford to give me a deal. See the point? Because there was a buyer, but dad's like, wait, I can't do that. So who do they call? They call a real estate agent to net the most. Because they can't just have a buyer. They've got to net the most. So yeah, to Mo's point, that's just the same way to say the same, 2 different ways to say the same thing.
another thing is when you mentioned that using the dollar bills is not a good idea, how about bringing in all the benefits that you're putting in and ask them, what would you want to eliminate of these series of things that we do to bring the price down?
What would you eliminate to
Yeah.
bring the commission down?
What
Menu
would
of
you-
services. First of all, it's not our model. Why? And would we really remove it? And how would we do that? I mean, we're not set up a la carte. We're set up like,
That's true, but would
would
you
this is the experience.
when you have describe what every one of those benefits do,
Mm-hmm.
and you ask them, well, would you like to remove this syndication off of this, and how many people
Yeah.
are going to look at your house?
You know what the real problem with that is? Look, everybody wants choice. I get that.
Sure.
And we all go, I would love a menu. Sure. Tell me what I can pay for. I'll make the choice, all that. That sounds great, right? Would you do that with your doctor? Would you go to the doctor and say, wait. Okay, so
Yeah.
I get it. I've got heart disease. Okay, so tell me which one of these things are, how much these treatments cost? And we would say to the doctor, okay, well, I don't want that one. Well, this medication's too much. That's the problem with that, is that there's no intellect, experience, and expertise behind the decision.
There's a trend like that in the
Yeah.
legal field too. People are wanting to represent themselves, and they'll enter in like pro se, and they get to this point where they're like, oh, now we're in motion or discovery phase, and then they're looking for an attorney, and then it's so hard to kind of like go and say, what have we done, and that kind of thing. But like across the nation, everybody's wanting to do that. So it's not just in real estate, and so the focus on value and not cost is like so.
Yeah.
The doctor scenario, I mean, it's just your health and future.
Yeah, we would trust the professional that these are the things we need. And I think that that's kind of where we're coming from. Another
Well,
comment?
and I think that your example earlier is perfect, that we don't know what we will encounter. Every single deal is so different. And when I don't know that there's a transaction I've gone into with the expectation of how it's going to work out,
Yeah.
and have the reality actually be what I thought.
Right.
And they need to have someone to be able to go through all of that and to navigate and to help them through the process. And for all, I don't know about anyone else in here, but for even, every time it's a learning experience for me. I learn something from every single transaction because they are all so different.
Right.
And you can't say, I don't want this because I'm not going to need it. You don't know what you're going to need.
Yeah.
Until you get into it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I that's exactly why we're on the model we're on. Trust us. Now, you know what that means? Let's just dig into one particular case. So take Joe Lowry, for example. His role at our company is to vet and audit continually the technologies and tools in which we have. Are they effective or not? If they're no longer effective, we either outgrown them, or our research is showing that it's not as effective as we'd hoped, or there's a better solution, then the capital dollars spent are diverted to something better. Like from the doctor standpoint, there's a better test, there's a better system, there's a better medication. So you see why we would not turn this over to the client and go, okay, with your 3 houses you sold in your lifetime, we're going to let you pick on a menu of what's best for you. It's very reckless. I mean, that would, it's kind of like anti-fiduciary, isn't it?
My idea was that when you explain the benefit of all these things that you're doing, and explain it right, and they know that every one of these things have a very important point in this whole thing, then you're telling them to look at this. You wouldn't want to eliminate any of these. So how much do you want me to?
I think, first of all, thrilled Mo brought it up, or we wouldn't even have this trained conversation. It's just rephrase it where it's not a choice to eliminate them, and this is why.
Right.
Because we vetted the toolbox, and we continue to do that, and this is what we know we may need, and to the point where we don't know what transaction we're going to have. Some of these will be emphasized, some of them will be used little, but we may need them all. We don't know. This is why technology's had a hard time trying to get into our business and disrupt us, because of how unique every transaction is. And the resources. I mean, you guys are a phone call away from an expert in technology, legal, law, forms, Facebook, you know what I mean? Like exposure, projects, building, developing, land development. I mean, and soon it will be property management and leases. And, this thing is bigger than just like, I'm just going to sell a home.
And that's why Berkshire, because if I don't have an answer, I can reach out to someone who is an expert. And so their expertise is for me to give to you. You're getting all of that.
Yeah, and that's who they're hiring, and that's who they're paying for.
Right.
They get the whole thing.
Right.
And it's just very compelling when we do we do a good job of doing that. All right. Well, that was all based on the conversation of, I know you're better, but will you do it for less? Matter of fact, let me inject one other train of thought. You might ask the seller, what differences did you see in us and ABC Realty that you like? And now they're saying, well, I like you do this, and I think you do better at this. I think you do better at this. You're already getting their mind right. Like, well, yeah, there's value there. And I really, to Mo's point, I don't really want to give those things up because I may need those. And it does fit my transaction and my property. So something to think about. Okay, guys, I hope that was helpful for you online as well on handling objections. Stay tuned to the next version. I don't have a song to sing, though, here. What song would we sing for we've handled the objection? Anything come to mind?
Still have honesty.
You still have honesty from Billy Joel? It's hard to get it out, isn't it? All right.
Gotta Spotify that. Tell them to find out what it is.